We're the professor panel, so we're going to talk to you about research. This event's pretty amazing. Ran into, like Tree Dow, Matt Johnson. This is a great group of folks here. So it's like NeurIPS, but less people. So I think we're going to talk about the current state of AI. As I think you were saying, Kyunghyun, like stuff's a little boring right now. So hopefully we can be a little bit more interesting. We're going to talk about how to kind of apply AI to problems we care about. And I think the panel is particularly interesting because everyone up here is kind of working on AI plus other things. And I thought we could start by maybe doing intros by talking about what got you into the non-AI parts of what you do. I think we all know why we're interested in AI, but why the applications we work on?
Oh, sure. Okay, I can start first. So I've been actually asking myself this question about what computer science is. I'm a professor of computer science, have a computer science degree and everything, like the bachelor and master's and PhD. But then I couldn't really tell what computer science was, not to mention the AI at the end of the day. And I think we are actually in the discipline of problem solving. So we're trying to figure out what is the right way to abstract out the details, come up with the shared solutions that can be used to solve a lot of different problems. Now, because it's a discipline of problem solving, I think we shouldn't actually be necessarily led by the technology itself or the algorithms that we come up with, but we need to constantly be inspired by the challenging problems that are out there. That if we could actually solve them, that's going to have a big impact on the society. And in doing so, it's been kind of my thought process ever since about 7 or 8 years ago what are the most difficult problems that I think are worth solving? And then that got me into the healthcare about 10 years ago, working together with the people at NYU Langone. And then nowadays I'm spending half of my time at Genentech because I think that the health in general, and in particular, tackling the challenging issues in the current healthcare is one of the most important problems that can inspire all of us.
Very nice. I don't have a better answer than that, but I started as a scientist, so it's a little bit the other way around. And being an astrophysicist, we try to understand the beginning, the end, and the contents of the universe. We try to understand what brought us to where we are right now. How do we get from, nothing in the universe all the way to having Earth? So that's my fundamental question, right? And what brought me to AI actually was 2011 when I became a Carnegie Mellon professor. Everyone's doing ML at that point, and no one else is, sort of. There's very little bit CNN work getting started, to be really popular. And everyone in CMU were like, we have to do this. These tools are amazing. So we started looking at what ML at that point can do for science. And I became very, let's just say, convinced by the tools at that point from 2011 and got really excited about this. And that's why I am doing AI across science.
Loaded question. Do you not consider yourself a scientist still? You said I was a scientist?
I think I'm considered interdisciplinary.
Okay. All of the above.
All of the above.
Cool. And I think I was told I'm both the moderator and on the panel, so I'll give a quick answer. So these days I'm working primarily on code. I work at a company called Anysphere, which is actually just called Cursor now. So that's what we build. And I think I'm just... coding has always been an area I've been really fascinated by. It's what I consider the thing I know how to do on kind of Earth. And it's been fascinating to see this become an area where it's probably the first area we'll see where these systems just become better than humans kind of across the board. And I think I'm fascinated by the idea of going into work every day with people at Cursor who are extremely good at coding, some of the best coders I've seen in the world, but yet building and kind of ceding control to these systems, which has been an interesting experience to see. And it's been kind of fascinating to work on the kind of problems to make it better and kind of more useful for what we're trying to do. Cool. So I have a lot of questions. Let's get into some of them. I think the first thing I wanted to talk about was when we talk about AI these days, it primarily means LLMs. And that seems to be the technology that is kind of synonymous with what we're building. Shirley, particularly in your work, you've done a lot of work with building machine learning models for physical systems that have continuous parts, have much more interesting math. How do you view kind of LLMs and kind of symbolic models versus some of the more scientifically motivated systems?
Yeah, so as a scientist, I would say interdisciplinary scientist, we want to solve problems, right? And some of the problems we want to solve maybe modeling either exploding stars or energy system that is either can be a GPU data center or a thermal system, such a nuclear reactor. Like, how do you cool the stuff around it? These are not the problems you can ask any LLMs, your favorite ones on your phone, to solve. So how do we get from where LLM is to where hopefully the intelligence can get us? And I think that's where I'm most excited about, whether we can take all this technology we have built and ground it with a physical reality around it. That, whether the temperature in the air, pressure here, can I model the whole air, fluid dynamics around the system properly? So you have the perfect, most efficient cooling system here. So those are the questions I'm most excited about. And this applies to many different disciplines, not just the thermal systems, and also like biology. Biology, I think healthcare has a lot of similar realities there too. So you want reality coming back to beyond human genetic text trained LLMs. So I think that's where it's interesting.
And just a quick follow-up, but do you feel like this is a matter of taking the technology we have today and pushing it to the right data? Or do you think we need a kind of another major breakthrough to kind of get to that point?
I think there's a lot we can do with the current technology plus extra smaller breakthroughs. But I think the interesting piece, for the scientific model, people are very probably bought in already, like AlphaFold. You need the scientists to come in to help together, not just the data, but also the human piece, which I think right now is sort of not as obvious in the LLM world.
Yeah. Kyunghyun, I'm curious about your thoughts on this as well.
Yeah, I mean, current technology, amazing, right? So I use it every day for coding, you're writing emails, you're writing reports and whatnot. But then what I think is missing at the moment is that if you think about the scientific discovery or the trying to solve these problems that we don't even know how to define carefully, is the process of discovery. So we need to make the process of discovery systematic to the point that we can now use the AI to follow this process of the discovery itself. But currently, we actually have the process of discovery ourselves, however horrible that is or however amazing that is. And then along the way, we're going to use AI here and there. So I think that AI for science, there are two stages. And the first stage, we are there. We are using all these amazing techniques and we're improving them to solve the problems that we want to solve or to discover things that we want to discover. But the next stage is going to be about how can we actually make the process of discovery itself systematic so that the AI can actually discover things for us rather than asking us what needs to be discovered.
Yeah, let's talk about that a bit more. So the other day I was walking around the West Village and there was like a pop-up for Anthropic and they were giving away hats and there was like a line down the block. It was like New York Fashion Week, right? And one of the things they were giving out was this like little blue book that Dario Amodi wrote. And if you read this, which I have, it says that we're going to cure Alzheimer's with AI. Now, Dario is not a details person. It just kind of says we're going to do this. And I guess I'm curious, like, what is the mechanism? Is this going to happen? Is it just kind of like AI is going to keep on getting better and then one day we'll figure this out? Or I don't know. How do you think about this?
So this one, let me try to answer. I'm actually wearing my NYU hat today, but let me just quickly put on my Genentech hat, which is part of Roche, which is the largest pharmaceutical in the world. It'll be awesome if you can actually cure Alzheimer's, right? But then the reality is actually far from actually curing anything. We don't even know how to define what Alzheimer's is. In fact, the problems that we are now thinking about, what Shirley is thinking about, what I'm thinking about, it's kind of science, is a problem. The biggest problem there is to even define what is the thing that we want to tackle. So if you don't define them carefully, you can actually say things like that. And then it doesn't really mean anything. We don't even know what Alzheimer's is. And then that definition is changing every day. We don't even know how to detect it. We don't even know how to characterize the people who have Alzheimer's in a way that is specific enough. And then not to mention that, they're trying to cure it. What does it even mean to cure? Does it mean to actually, let's say, turn the, age of the brain cells around? Maybe, maybe not. Is there some particular genes that we can actually design or drugs for? We actually don't know. So all these things are actually problems of discovery. And then the current, let's say, technology is amazing at solving the problems for us, but I'm not entirely sure whether this process of discovery is something that has been automated yet. So until that happens, I don't think we have any chance for curing Alzheimer's in the next, 10 years or so. But by the way, let me actually put my NYU hat back on. Very exciting. Anthropic is doing a great job. Love them, yes.
Shirley, I'm curious what your thoughts on this. Like, is discovery a tangible thing, or are we going to find it's just another thing LLMs like learn to do?
I think there's a lot that LLM has done for us. Like, I put on my normal person hats. Thought is great. There is a lot of tools that we are calling from the LLM work, but also the specialized models that we have built. Kyung has built other models as well, and I've personally built with our team at Polymathic a lot of scientific specialized models that do really well. But these are tools. So how do we go from we using tools, just like AlphaFold is being used as a piece of tool across this entire scientific method flow to discovery?
And when you say tools, are you talking about tools to like help, say, model a scientific problem, or are you talking about research help or like citation help or that kind of thing?
Less so is citation help. I feel like, okay, I'm putting on personal opinion, not representing anyone, okay? Yeah. I feel like the citations and literature search are useful, but not going to get us to where we want, because the discoveries are not in the publication. Mm-hmm. If they are in the publication, it's discovered already. So you need something else on top of either it's informed by data or informed by, some humans thinking about it. Maybe there's another systematic way to loop over all the possibilities. So we have to get that piece in. And I think we're not there right now, not with the current tools.
Yeah, I guess maybe the devil's advocate is like, in my day-to-day work these days, I just, what used to take me kind of many hours to build now takes like 1 minute. Like I can just code up dashboards or things that tell me what's going wrong. And maybe like just the process will get faster in that way, or there maybe not. I mean, you were talking earlier about how just lab work hasn't gotten that much faster at all, right?
Yeah. So, okay. So the Genentech and all, if you think about the drug discovery and development, let's say coming up with a new drug, it actually has about, let's say, 20 to 30 stages that covers anywhere between 5 to 50 years to go from the beginning where we're trying to figure out what are the conditions that constitute a disease, and then trying to figure out the processes by which these conditions actually show up, trying to design a molecule, develop them, test it, at the lab with the animals, and then clinical trials, and then getting the approval. Now, along this time, and then what everyone is doing at the moment is to trying to speed up each and every stage using AI. That's true. We can actually go from, let's say, anything that used to take 1 year to, let's say, 1 month. Amazing. But it doesn't help, because what happens is that the overall success rate is in fact close to, let's say, less than 1%, if not lower. And then what that means is that even if we speed it up, it doesn't really matter. In fact, what we want to go for is to get a much more accurate discovery engine that is able to improve the eventual success rate, that is end-to-end success rate, so that even if it takes 50 years to get on one drug, but if we knew that if we go after the 100 of them, then if we know that the 5 of them are going to be successful, then that's it. That's going to actually revolutionize the whole, let's say, drug discovery and the overall healthcare. So we are focused a lot on the efficiency at this point with the AI, but efficiency is just a step one. Step 2 is where we're actually trying to use the AI to solve the problem in a way that is so different, so that the eventual outcome is going to have a so much higher quality and also so much higher rate of success.
So around like, let's say 2013, I think we were maybe all grad students or kind of in this world in some sense. I was a grad student kind of doing NLP. And I thought what was interesting about NLP was like all the interesting linguistic structure. It turned out like what was interesting about NLP was we had a lot of data. And that was like the reason why people were interested in this problem at all. And I kind of realized that like what was unique about deep learning was much more like data question than it was anything else. It was a field that was like all about scaling data for arbitrary problems, and all the other stuff was details. It still feels like for scientific problems, data is such a blocker and such a challenge. And I guess I'm curious in some of your work, how you go about kind of working with people, finding interesting data, kind of building the relationships to make it possible to kind of run these sort of models.
I mean, a lot of it's existing relationship, right? Like if I'm started with astrophysics, we know the entire astrophysics community, and we build hackathons and bring communities together, and they're very happy to contribute data. A lot of astrophysics data is public. And I went and did something else, which is in biology, where a lot of data is public, but completely not connected. And say if you have DNA to mRNA pairs, and then this mRNA to protein, they're not linked in all three. They will just link 1, 2, and then 2 to 3. So all that mapping and all the way to protein and cell conditions, right? So that is extra hard. And I realized we need to build something to make this curation of data, even though they're public, much easier. So that's something actually in Polymathic, which is a research collaboration that we built, have been doing. We have built a way to build data collection a lot faster and verification. So that's one thing. But I think having the community around is still very important because a lot of data actually is not public. And you want the scientists to come in and tell you, hey, you need this evaluation, you need to do this. Otherwise, having this particular lab or particular instrument is giving you wrong data and you wouldn't know about it otherwise.
I actually would love to hear more about that. So what were the kind of cultural differences in astrophysics versus biology? Or like, how did you see the kind of social relationships in those fields?
I mean, social across the two areas?
Or just like what was different kind of historically in astrophysics versus biology that led to this? Or I don't know, do you have any thoughts on yeah?
I think the fields are so different. Astrophysics is all like community driven. Everyone's friends with everybody. Biology is a little bit different. I think pharma companies, sorry about that. I was just like, they like to keep the data in-house. They won't want to leave the premise. I mean, I think insurance data is the same way. It's a very different story. The cool thing we've done is that the foundation model we trained for astrophysics, the same infrastructure was used to train the biology model. And so I think there's still crossover, but in more the technology side.
Interesting. So what about computer scientists? Are we nice or mean?
Hence.
Oh, okay. Not on the record, yeah.
New York ones are nice.
The New York ones are nice. Great. Cool. So I guess I want to take this opportunity to bother you. So we're at about the 10th year anniversary of, I would say, probably the most important invention of the 21st century, which is attention. And I'm curious, I know you're humble about kind of having done all this, but I guess I'm curious, just looking back, 10 years in, did you see this coming? Was it a surprise to you? What was the like foundation myth and what led to all this?
Okay. Yeah, it is surprising how quickly it has actually become, let's say, de facto standard tool. So what really changed it is that I started, my PhD and master's by training these restrictive Boltzmann machines that no one really remembers or no one really cares that much about. And then I tried to train autoencoders and whatnot, but it was so difficult to train any one of them. So in fact, as we are all realizing, in particular in this audience, that the AI is amazing in particular because it enables us to solve so many problems. But then back then, just training this model itself was so difficult. All those vanishing gradient, exploring gradient were so real. You could actually see that happening on your screen, but you couldn't really fix it. And then you had the whole community spent, let's say, 20, 30 years. So Jan LeCun already knew how to train.
I've heard of him, yeah.
Yeah, yes. But then otherwise, no one could do that. So the attention was essentially the last kind of piece we needed in order to train these models without worrying about it. The first piece was some kind of normalization. Second piece was using a ReLU, like let's say piecewise linear activation function. Third piece was this kind of residual connection. And then the final piece was the attention. And then from there on, we could just train these models. It's so nice. In fact, 2018, I told my students that we shouldn't work on machine translation because all we need is more data, make a model bigger because we can always train it. So I think that we're in a so much more fun place now than 10 years ago when it was so horrible to train these models. Yes.
I don't know. Have you tried training RL recently? It's pretty hard.
I think RL is mistake. It's an algorithmic framework, yes.
Oh, well, let's hear that. I would hear that take.
I mean, so essentially, in my view, every problem needs to be put into the supervised learning with as much supervision as possible. Otherwise, in this kind of high-dimensional space, there's no way for us to actually find the iterative, let's say, path toward the maximizing any value. And the reinforcement learning, so way to solve reinforcement learning, in my opinion, is to, in fact, change the reward function as much as we can, collect more data, collect more intermediate feedback or whatnot, and then turn it into the dense supervised learning, rather than just solving it from just a reinforcement learning by saying that, we get only just a single scalar reward or small number of the bits. And then that's almost like trying to, find the root in the maze, solve the maze by, not looking at the maze, in my opinion, yes.
Cool. Okay. I think we are out of time, so let's end it there. Let's thank our panelists.